Alex?
Yes, and frankly, the degree of denigration, where do you begin tonight? I mean, Oxfam speaking for many NGOs and environmental groups, and indeed many countries around the world, when they say this is unbelievably and unimaginatively bad as a deal. Al Gore, environmental complainer, saying this is like something that has been written by, for and with the petrostates. There are two crumbs of comfort. There is a lot in here about accelerating the move upwards in terms of renewable energy. And for the first time, at least oil and gas are on the agenda. It's taken 28 years to get that elephant in the room actually talked about. But as you say, they have removed from the earlier text this, what is deemed a scientific imperative to begin the orderly phase out of oil and gas, and that is being deemed as simply unacceptable. The EU indeed saying tonight they could be actually inclined to walk away from this draft unless it's radically improved.
So what now?
Yeah, what now? Well, around 24 hours. I mean, the gavel's supposed to come down at 7 a.m. UK time tomorrow. That's looking a little unlikely given the huge divisions this has been caused. The absolute test for that man at the centre of it, Sultan Al Jaber, boss of an oil company, but somehow also in charge of climate talks. Either that's a stroke of genius and he can pull something out of the hat and get those references back in to phasing out in an orderly fashion oil and gas, or he can't, in which case all the critics will say, well, that's no surprise, we told you so. We will hear something probably tomorrow, but don't forget, COPs have a habit of overrunning. If ever the stage was set to overrun, surely this profound division tonight is one.
Thanks, Alex. Well, just before we came on air, I spoke to the Green Party MP, Caroline Lucas, and I asked for her thoughts on the COP presidency's claim that this new draft text, in which phased out has been phased out, is a huge step forward.
I mean, that is just unbelievable. This is not a step forward. This is a huge step backwards. You know, you cannot say that you're serious about climate science and at the same time not have a text that talks about phasing out fossil fuels. You can't say you're serious about the Paris Agreement and everything that's been agreed before if at the same time you're offering people basically a pick and mix. It's an optional menu. People can just pick what they like from it. This is really, really serious, and it's not surprising that some of the most climate vulnerable countries are saying that this text represents a death sentence for them.
I mean, I suppose what supporters of it would say is that, look, any mention of fossil fuels in a COP text is progress, because we haven't seen that before.
Well, that's true, but we also haven't seen before the kind of catastrophic weather events, the amount of global heating that is already happening. And we know that there is such pressure now on the next 24 hours to make sure that we improve on this text, because if we don't, it won't be rhetorical to say that this text is a death sentence. Simply mentioning fossil fuels without making it a legal requirement to phase them out doesn't take us further forward. That is a total betrayal of some of the most vulnerable countries in the world.
I mean, the suspicion throughout this COP has been that the Gulf states have had an extraordinary amount of influence over the precise text. Now, given this is a global conference, how does that happen?
Well, it happens because there aren't enough rules to regulate, for example, the size of the different delegations, the fact that we've had 2,500 delegates here representing the fossil fuel industry. That is more than the 10 most climate vulnerable countries put together. So when you have such an inequality of arms, if you like, when it comes to these negotiations, perhaps it's not so surprising that what you see is an outcome that favours the petrostates and the fossil fuel companies, not some of the poorest countries. So we need the US, the EU and the UK to start really banging heads together, pushing ahead on this. And the tragedy is, of course, that the UK has actually lost a lot of its moral authority because it, right now, is pushing ahead with more licenses, 100 new licenses for oil and gas in the North Sea, a new coal mine in Cumbria, and the Rosebank oil field. So it's a great disappointment that the UK can't even play the role that we need it to right now to put pressure on the other states to come out with a better outcome.
It is the only process the world has. I mean, if you're really saying this is taking us backwards, what's the point?
Because it's the only game in town, Krishnan, that's the point. And many of the poorest countries would say this is the one forum where their voices can be heard loud and clear. Now listen, it's not the end yet, and COP meetings famously, as you know, run late. So there is still time to turn this around. But what people need to know in Dubai is that the eyes of the world are on them, the pressure is on them, civil society is really active there, business is really active there. There are so many people willing a better outcome, and we need them basically to stay in that venue till they come up with it.
Caroline Lucas, thank you very much.
Thank you.